Welcome back to the Inner Sanctum. I'm Julian Gill. I'm back with Andrew Scambatti. And today, Andrew, what are we talking about?
We're taking a trip back to 1975, January 31st, 1975, and going all the way back to San Francisco, California at the old Winterland Ballroom.
A big San Francisco welcome for our special guest tonight, Kiss.
How far is that from you?
It would have been a couple of miles, I think, because I'm in the outer
Really?
Richmond.
Mm.
But I always live in fear of when I say to you, what are we talking about this week? Just in case I've gotten the schedule wrong and focused in on the wrong video. So
Can you imagine? That'd
fortunately,
be
we're
really
on the
funny.
same. It would be hilarious, but we're on the same page this week. Yeah, San Francisco. I'm really happy to live here.
Hmm.
But I'm really sad that the Winterland's gone, but we've still got the Fillmore. There's a couple of other hole in the wall type venues, but I can just imagine seeing a band like Kiss in a venue. Well, Winterland was pretty big compared to the Fillmore, but what it must have been awesome to see them back in the day here.
So I just did a quick search, and the Winterland Ballroom, sometimes called the Winterland Arena or simply the Winterland, was demolished in late 1985, but it closed in December of 78. So it basically stayed abandoned for 6 years before it was actually demolished. It's kind of weird to think about that venue that we've talked so much about in Kiss bootleg history was closed basically before Kiss fell from grace. Kiss was still on top of the world in 1978, and this place was still open, and then it closed. Um, it's weird. So this is a famous venue, just like some of the other venues that we talked about. I mean, it's best known for Frampton Comes Alive. It's also known for The Last Waltz from the band, that film directed by Martin Scorsese that was shot here as well. So this is one of those famous old school venues. And it's sort of odd watching this video and thinking that the venue has such a rich history and such was this majestic place at the time, because when you're watching the video you're like, man, this place doesn't look very big because everything is so close up, and the stage that the band was performing at wasn't that big. So it's odd to think about that this was an arena, or it was sometimes called the arena, and it was looked like it's such a small place. It held about 5,400 people, and from everything that I've read, it was sold out, and what I read was on kissconcerthistory.com.
Yeah, so it's a great venue. I mean, it's also notable for the Sex Pistols' final concert, and I'm obviously a big Pistols fan as well, so
Mhm.
that's kind of interesting for me. And the sound check from that show circulates as does the show itself. So there were a lot of great shows that were filmed and recorded at the Winterland. There's a little
Mhm.
bit of Aerosmith. I believe it might be Winterland. I just haven't figured it out. It was on Behind the Music. A little bit of
Mhm.
black and white footage from them. It's either Winterland or Largo. Hard to tell.
Mhm.
But again, so much classic music, classic history was archived there, which is just absolutely staggering for one venue. And again, the video camera in house is a critically core component of the importance of this, both this show, this venue, and this city. Early Kiss, kissing in San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah. So just going through the list of records, Jimi Hendrix live at the Winterland, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Sammy Hagar, Bruce Springsteen, Humble Pie, Sha Na Na, the Blues Brothers, the Allman Brothers, ELO. I mean, the list just goes on and on of live albums that were recorded here. And then obviously we talked about films that were recorded here too. The Grateful Dead did one, and Sex Pistols, The Filth, and the Fury was also done there too. So this is a famous venue. This is such a famous venue, and this is the performance that we're talking about today is January 31st, 1975. And we also know that there were two other performances that were possibly captured of Kiss that were at the Winterland, but have yet to circulate among any type of fan circles, which is unfortunate because I think the purpose of this show is basically to illustrate that we want more Kiss. We want to have more things to watch, more things to enjoy. Just before we dig into the show properly, I mean, just an overview of the show is you're hearing the band in their infancy, and you're hearing like them tuning guitars a little bit between songs, and the band sounds raw and rough. And this is probably the earliest that we'll ever get to a professionally recorded Kiss concert.
Yeah, other than the TV performances, one last archival release by another group, one I purchased the CD of a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Big Brother and the Holding Company.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely stunning performance at, at the Winterland.
Yeah.
But you talk about the other two, and we don't know whether the June 74 or the June 75 performances survived. There's a lot of, kind of urban history around the recordings on whether they survive or not, whether they were burned in fires, whether they were sold in the early 2000s for $10,000 for a couple of people whose names were attached to what was once archived online but has now since been purged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it's the what if, and I think it was posited it would have been around the time the June 1st, 1974 performance that Kissin' Time might have been in the set. So that makes that one particularly interesting. So who knows? It seems that yearly something drops out of the sky. So there's eternal hope that there are additional professional recordings. And I think the 74 one would be appealing. But you know what? Having just watched 75 January, the one that we're going to be talking about today, right before starting the show, I got to say, what an amazing show to be talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Another interesting fact about the June 1st, 1975 performance. It's sort of interesting that they played there June 1st, 74, and then again June 1st, 1975. What's interesting about the June 1st, 1975 performance is it wasn't sold out like the January 31st one, and the Tubes were the opening band June 1st, 1975, and that full show is available everywhere. You can go on the YouTube right now and see every single song on the official Tubes channel of their Winterland performance, June 1st, 75, opening for Kiss. So I think it's interesting that this is a show that the headliners video is, missing, but the openers is still there.
But for the 75 show, the headliner in name only was Kiss because the Tubes were completely Bill Graham's buddies, and they were
Yeah.
only on that bill because of Bill Graham, and Kiss wouldn't have performed without them being on the bill. So you almost get to the point, was it a spiteful situation that those tapes were erased immediately afterwards? Were they lost in a fire? Because that the Tubes circulates from that show is just like, it's like rubbing salt in the wound. It's like a deliberate thumbing the nose at Kiss. It's like, up yours, here's the Tubes, and that's all that's going to exist from that show.
Yeah, I mean, we also know that Rush played there as well too. We do have a set list from Rush that's circulated, but I'm just searching now. I don't know if any video of Rush's set circulated. I'm assuming that if Rush's set circulated, it kind of cements the fact that maybe Kisses is out there. But but yeah, just interesting history to know that there's other performances that may or may not exist of this. Um, this is another one of those venues that had an in-house camera system. So much like Cobalt Hall and the Summit in Houston, Texas, there's always multiple videos from the same venue because they just had video cameras in-house all the time. Didn't cost them anything to just press play and press record, probably. So whereas some of the other
No,
venues that we talked about, video crews had to be brought in to archive the show. So they had in-house camera systems there, but again, still just looking at the 1975, the January 31st, 1975 performance, tickets are only $2. Can you believe that? Can you believe that if you can go see Kiss for $2 in 1975?
right, but there was $145 in fees on that $2.50
That's
ticket.
actually correct. That's actually correct. Yeah, that's actually correct. So, this concert has circulated for forever. As long as I've been collecting bootlegs, this concert has been out there. In addition to it circulating among bootlegs, it was on Kissology Volume One. It was on Disc One. But it also kind of was. It popped up in many of the official Kiss videos in the '90s. It was on Kiss Extreme Close Up. There was a clip of "Watching You" that was on Kiss Extreme Close Up. It also appeared on Kiss Confidential, Nothing to Lose, and it started off the Kiss My Ass video with Parasite. And I think Kiss My Ass might have been the first compilation video I ever got. Kiss My Ass. Still my original VHS tape. Was I kind? Was I kind? I was not kind. I did not rewind. So, but why would I? I probably haven't played these tapes in 20 years because we have them
You've
on DVD.
forgotten my entry point, Kiss Exposed.
It's not
Deuce. When
exposed.
they're It's on Exposed, and it's we're going to go down into the basement. They're teasing Mark with the tape. This one's in black and white.
Oh,
It's
you're
old,
actually right. Here's my Kiss
and
Exposed VHS.
that is my Educating Rita Kiss video primer, because I became a fan at that time, and that was my first introduction, really visually, to Kiss as or Kiss in their original incarnation. And to this day, I mean, it's not surprising that Deuce is my favorite song because I'd heard it in '79 when I moved to America.
Mhm.
But that was the video that really reinforced to me what a history the group had, because I'm like, my mentality at that age was, it's in black and white. This is ancient. This is an artifact. This, they've been around that long. They've been around so long they were filming stuff in black and white. Only my parents have stuff in black and white and photos from the war. So it was really shocking to me at that point, as I'm starting to learn about the group's history, to see that. And it seems kind of weird to even say that, but you know what, there were still black and white TVs
Yeah,
around at that time as well.
I forgot about this one. This is the one I watched the least. I know it's sacrilegious to say that, but it's very interesting to note that the glitch that appears in Deuce on Kiss Exposed is the same glitch that appears on Kissology Volume 1 during Deuce. During that first bomb, there's a big dropout in the video, which I guess is on all tapes. Um, there are certainly copies in the fan circles that don't have that, but it's sort of odd that some of the same little dropouts, they appear and disappear. But this is one of those shows that was on a lot of things. It was basically on this whole Kiss video library. They pull from the same couple of shows. It was so interesting to notice that. I'm glad you mentioned Exposed, because I would have forgotten about that one, that it was on there. But again, let's look at Exposed. I mean, the same couple videos they're pulling from: San Francisco 75, Cobo Hall 76, Houston 77, Sydney 1980. And these are all shows that we have or are going to talk about throughout the whole history of this. I mean, it's odd to know that there's basically whatever we've seen is all they claim to have. At least at one point, they claim to have that. So interesting, very
You
very
know what's
interesting.
interesting is that the show's been around so long and the band's had it for so long that it was actually included on Gene's inventory when he was writing a prospective history in 1979. I think it's on the Baton Rouge.
That's right.
That's how
That's
far
right.
back it goes. So, the stories that I had heard, that it was run by a copy was run off the master at Winterland by an employee, who had access to the Bill Graham archives, or I guess they weren't called that at the time. They were just called the archives. It probably isn't as correct, because the group definitely got a copy.
110% the group got a copy. And I know the list that you're referring to, because you actually posted that list on the Kiss FAQ at some point. There's a historical document library section, and I believe that's in one of them. What's so interesting about that list is, I mean, I saw that list years and years and years later, but on that list is basically what ended up being the greatest show on earth, and I hadn't even seen that list before. So I always chuckle when I'm like, listen, I was doing I was doing the work that the gods intended me to do. I was blessed with glorious purpose, as Loki would say. So, but anyway, the band has had this and has been aware of this show for a very, 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 very long time. Um, and as you know, it's not complete. There is the every copy that I've seen cuts off the end of "Let Me Go Rock and Roll." And isn't it weird to watch a Kiss concert and have them not play "Rock and Roll All Night"? Not because they ran out of time, which we kind of talked about on the last show, how they ran out of time in South America in 1994, but it wasn't written yet. "Rock and Roll All
It was
Night" is not on this show because it wasn't written yet.
Correct yourself. It was written. It had even been recorded in demo form in Los Angeles at that time.
When
Um,
when when that was the Magna Graphics studio, right? That was
oh, no, 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 no. That's for Destroyer. So that's I think it's on the website, the studio sessions that they did. Yeah, January the 24th and 25th at Larrabee
Oh,
Studios in
the
Los
Larrabee
Angeles. They
Studios demos. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so they had
okay, okay.
recorded, I think it was 4 songs, and they formed the beginning part of the sessions for Dress to Kill. This video takes place at a time where the band already know that Hotter Than Hell is a dud. That they, well, not necessarily a dud. Well, it was a dud. Okay, no way to sugarcoat it. That they're going back into the studio. They've already been back in the studio. It's already been reported in the trades that they are recording in the studio with Neil Bogart producing. So they know they're going. So Rock and Roll All Night does exist.
Okay, well, it doesn't exist to the public in its final form yet, and
Correct.
it doesn't exist in its final form to the public just yet. But it would, and then it would never leave the live set ever, 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 ever. Um, but I recall putting this very own "Kiss My Ass" VHS tape into my VCR. Man, I know this video came out in 94, 95. But I must have gotten this video. It was probably 98, 99 is when I got this video. Probably around 99. But I remember putting this in, and I hadn't had some of the shows that were on this videotape yet. And I remember seeing Parasite for the first time, and I was like, wow! I couldn't believe that I was seeing this black and white footage. There's more black and white footage in it because they do Take Me. They do it in 1970s rehearsal. So it's really interesting to look at this stuff and and see how far back.
Yeah, Kiss My Ass didn't have the same impact on me by that point because, again, I thought the quality issues on Kiss My Ass really ruined the experience to a certain extent. So that's one. That's probably the least frequently viewed official Kiss VHS. I still have one. It's sealed, and it's not getting opened. Even I think I have a DVD of it. One of the Japanese reissues, but again, it's only because it fills the space in the library. I was happy when they put it out in Kissology, but I also was a bit disappointed that all those glitches that were present on the copies that we had been enjoying for years were still present, and there wasn't a pristine copy to go to. I was disappointed in the visual treatment of the show. I thought it just looks horrendous on Kissology versus my expectation. It's like I ordered a video from Wish.
Yeah, I was disappointed with the quality of Kissology, but I mean that was really the quid pro quo for Kissology. I was disappointed with everything on there in terms of quality. I was disappointed in selections. I was disappointed in everything because we thought that as fans, when we saw that this was going to come out, that we were going to be able to throw away all of the DVDs that we had amassed over the time, and it just wasn't. I mean, there's that glitch in the beginning of Deuce. There are several glitches all throughout the show, but there was a version of this show that circulated from a 8 millimeter master that didn't have these glitches. But the problem with the 8 millimeter master is that the brightness and the contrast was all off, and the picture was blown out. So there are other versions of this show out there. Who has them? We'll never know. Did Kiss have them at one point? Maybe. I mean, it's just become very, very clear to me that what's been put out over time, that the archives of Kiss aren't the greatest as far as in terms of quality and organization.
Or
So,
security.
or security. That is 100% a fact too. That is a fact. But it's just
Well,
it's
the file I was watching for this prep, was labeled as the 8 mil master,
yep,
and
yep.
it had glitches all over the place too.
And that's the version that I used for my remaster series, and it was the best one that I could find at the time. So there are tons of versions of this show out there. They're all marginally better or worse. So it's a shame because this show is such a landmark show, and it should have. I mean, man, can you imagine if we had the 2-inch master tape of this or something that was properly archived or properly scanned or just something. So, but and what we have again is incomplete. Every copy I've seen cuts off the end of "Let Me Go Rock and Roll," and does that ever exist, or was that just not on whatever we had?
Yeah, what is fortunate because the videos been transferred with the quality of a railroad track versus a modern automobile suspension is that the audio is at least very, very good. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the glitch is affected as well, but it sounds fantastic.
it sounds good. This is one of those early shows that I think I may have downloaded off kissfaq.com, where I had a real player file of the audio because it sounded so good that I was like, man, I can make a CD of this. Because some of the videos there's a lot of hissing, there's some of it is in mono, and just some of the videos doesn't sound great. Like for example, like I know Largo 79 is the only Dynasty show that's available. I just don't think Largo sounds good. So when someone put that on CD, I was like, doesn't sound good. But this show really sounds good. And as I mentioned before, you kind of hear the band noodling a little bit in between songs and tuning up and checking guitars. I mean, you don't hear that in Largo 77. So I thought this is an important concert to the band's history, and it shows you that they were just a band at this point. They were probably just four guys and probably four road crew members that were doing this. This was as grassroots as you can get. This was a small operation at this point. There wasn't 10 different T-shirts at the merch stand. There probably wasn't even a merch stand at this show because we know that the merchandise wasn't for sale until early 1976. So it's just interesting to see the band in such an infancy and hear the band. What always gets me is the intro to Got to Choose, where Paul goes, "This is from our latest album." And thinking like,
Yep.
man, how the hell is the latest album? And that was a clip that they used in the farewell tour promotional teaser that we talked about on one of the previous episodes, where this is off our latest album, Hotter Than Hell. I'm like, man, Hotter Than Hell, like this is as early as you can get. So it always fascinated me that this went back that far, and it still survived.
You know what amuses me? Is
What's
when
that?
Paul introduces a song, here's something from our album, and he gets it right because there's only two albums to choose from.
That's right. That's right. He had no choice. It's like, well, if it wasn't on the first one, it had to be on the second one, and the first one was called Kiss. So I think I got this one.
We're better for success in those days of getting it
But
right before
that's
he
right.
had 25 albums.
That's right. It seemed to me that he kind of always mixed up Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over, because even on the Rock the Nation tour, he was introducing Christine 16 from Love Gun. Oh, no, Christine 16 from Rock and Roll Over. So I thought that was pretty funny.
They all date
Yeah.
from the same era. Those two albums are sister albums because of Kramer being written at the same time. So, but we're
Hmm.
talking about 1975 here and the end
Hmm.
of the Hotter Than Hell tour. So, I'm not going to get too distracted. You said something else about not hearing the background chatter on some of the other shows. As a side tangent, quickly, go listen to Houston
Oh,
'77.
that's totally right.
There's a lot of great chatter. There's some other soundbars from '77 where there's a lot of noodling at the intro before the announcements. They're features and they're really fun. There's sometimes at the in between songs, you can hear Peter raging. He needs something from the
Where's my
crew, getting
drink?
someone's attention. So there's a lot of little nuance like that. You can hear a little bit on this show as well.
Hmm.
There's a couple of points where just in the silence in between, the recording is good enough that you can hear that. But again, I would love to see the master source for this and see it professionally redone with 2024 gear, if it even still exists, which who knows what the case is. I'd love to know what it came off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, they could just call me and I'll do it. I'll do it for them for free. Um, I that's funny. I did forget it. It's been so long since I watched a non Kissology version of Houston 77, and I forgot that does all that back and forth with Peter. Houston 77. And I think the other thing I took away from this show when I was watching it is, Peter is still controlling his microphone. He's like pushing it in and pulling it in. So there's like he's missing little accents during Nothing to Lose because he's pushing and pulling the microphone in and away. There wasn't a guy doing that for him yet at this point in time. It was all them. It was literally just these guys at the time just doing this. So interesting to me to see them at such a young age and such, a small operation. So, do you remember Obviously, you saw this on Kiss Exposed, but do you remember the first time you actually sat down and watched the show at the first time?
I do.
No.
I have. I have no recollection of when that was. Again, with not doing the videos, I didn't have it as a bootleg um, before I moved to Singapore or back to Britain.
Mhm.
So it's one of those weird things. I probably didn't see the full video until I moved back to the States again. It would have to be. I never had any Kiss videos other than the official titles in the UK, and same with Singapore for that matter. I may have had audio bootlegs of it. I think that I certainly did.
Mhm.
But in terms of seeing it, no, it late to the video party.
I think I initially got this one. I got a really bad copy of Anaheim 76. And the guy that sold it to me, I guess, felt bad and then sent me this in addition to Anaheim 76. So I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe that I had this one in addition to Anaheim. And I remember watching it and I remember thinking like, oh, it's in black and white. I don't like this. And I think I think I had the same takeaway when I first saw Jersey City 76. I was like, this is black and white. I was like, I don't want this. I want it in color. Because I mean, this was the late 90s at the time. I mean, I wouldn't have had anything in black and white. So for me to get something in black and white, I was always like, this is not really what I wanted. I wanted something, in Technicolor and something that I could see the band in. I was very much of the mind of Love Gun was Kiss. So if it wasn't that Love Gun show and that Love Gun presentation, I was like, I don't really like this. So, but I do remember watching it. And I obviously remember watching it on Kiss My Ass. I remember seeing that there on Kiss My Ass. I don't recall it on Kiss Exposed, which is really funny. So,
I just remember the arms reaching out to try and get the tape, and he keeps holding it back. No, here you can watch this one. And I don't even know that is the particular scene, but that's the thing that stands out in my mind. What also stands out is in terms of the black and white Kiss shows. I mean, there's St. Louis, um,
There's St. Louis, Jersey City 76. There's this one, and
and obviously Coventry.
there's Coventry, and then there's the partial Cobo Hall 76.
Yeah, and also the London, Ontario, isn't
Oh
there?
yes, London, Ontario. That's correct. Another
But in
fan
terms
shop.
of what circulated in the early 2000s or late 90s when I came back to the States, there wasn't much to see. I think there was some Jersey City was around on VHS even back
Mm-hmm.
then.
Mm-hmm.
But even to this day, this is the best looking black and white show.
110%. The initial copies of Jersey City 76 was very, 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 very bad. This could have almost been at the time release quality for a VHS tape at the time. I mean, we're really spoiled now, especially with everything is high definition and everything like that. But at the time, this would have passed for a VHS release. 110%.
Yeah,
110%
no, looks fantastic. What
on
else have to say
VHS.
on it?
So, but again, we've had this debate for a really long time. What's better? Are the bootleg copies better, or Kissology better? So, you guys be the judge. The purpose of this program isn't to say what is the definitive version. The purpose is just to rewatch these shows. So you guys be the judge and you tell us which ones are the best. I mean, my opinion. My feelings on the Kissology collection, but it'd be interesting to have somebody rewatch it who hasn't watched it in a while and get their thoughts on it too. Um, but I was very excited when this was included on Kissology, and then I was obviously disappointed.
Yeah, but it
But
has to be
anyway,
there. So
it it does.
they
It
could
does.
have edited things out, but they left imperfections in where they cut things from other things. So for the whole, I have very little complaints about Kissology because I still think having Kissology is better than not having it. So
Yeah, yeah, I
um,
agree there. I agree
for
there.
what it is,
I agree there. But me, I was always a video guy, and I was looking to get rid of the DVDs, and somehow I felt like I got more DVDs after I got Kissology. I was like, why do I need all this stuff? So, I
yeah,
remember,
because we're still looking for better. We're
yeah,
still looking for stuff that looks better, that sounds better. I go back to a 1990s cassette rip from a VHS, low generation, and listen to that over all these different versions now that have been tweaked by every Tom, Dick, and Harry, to their ears. And I just mastered up for my listening experience because remasters that have been remasters that have been,
ugh,
it just it just chops so much out of the frequencies and the overall integrity of the show. It takes an artist to work with the oldest original source that they can find to actually use that as the base, or the best oldest original, because otherwise you're really jumping the shark in terms of sonics and video.
I agree. I agree. You have people trying to remaster things that came off VHS. And, I was looking at something online the other day and someone was like, oh, master Houston 76, 60 FPS. And I'm watching it. I'm like, there's still a time code on this. Like, it's not good. Nothing about this is good. So, but anyway, I mean, let's dive in. Let's dive into the show. This is the shortest show that we've talked about so far on this series. But again, as you mentioned, this is probably the most important show that we need to talk about, because it is the oldest complete Kiss show that is currently circulating. Everything that came before this, complete pro shot, because Coventry is complete, but it's not it wasn't pro
Anything
shot.
but pro.
Yeah, it's anything but pro. So, and there are two nights from the Coventry available. That's just a shame that that not both are circus. This is the very first complete pro shot Kiss concert that we'll ever see. We might ever see. So we start off with your favorite song. We start off with Deuce.
What better? I mean, we've talked about Largo 75, so there are
Yeah.
some similarities still between the set, but there's a
Yes.
power and glory. Um, and it's, you've got to combine talking about it with Strutter, because it's a 1-2 punch. You've got Gene and Paul bouncing while Ace solos, that thick
Hmm.
bass line, Peter thundering away on providing the back end or the backbeat, and Paul playing through the legs, windmilling. I mean, he's throwing everything out there right from the start of the set.
Hmm.
Um, but what strikes me immediately, this is how you do overlays with 1970s technology.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is subtle and it works, because you get the choreography of Gene and Paul and then Ace doing his solo, and it comes together beautifully. It's just an
Yes.
incredibly powerful opening.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I really, really agree. There are some really, really great overlays on here. And there are some great overlays, on the Largo 79 show that we'll talk about later on at some point. But you're right. There are some super, super great overlays that are very, very tastefully done. And not only are you seeing like the wide shots of some of the band members, but you're seeing their makeup up close, personal, really, really in your face. And you're seeing the band basically, evolve. The thing that I noticed, how close the front row is to the stage. That's the first thing that I noticed. And then obviously, we talked about the bomb that goes off, and then it's a permanent glitch on the tape. So that was funny. But you do hear quite a little bit of noodling and, like, making sure the guitars are in tune in between Deuce and Strutter. So, which I thought was really, really cool to hear. And this is kind of before the songs like took off to unhuman like speeds. There's a groove to these songs still, especially Deuce and Strutter. There's a groove that was lost by the time the band was playing on the Destroyer tour, and then on after that. I mean, especially when you get to the 80s and these songs were just at lightning speed. So, but there's a groove here that isn't replicated soon after.
Yeah, but what about that candelabra at the beginning? Just the camera focused in
Yeah.
on that. Just what a bit of unintended visual storytelling. It means a lot to us because we know the relationship of the candelabra and some of the stage props. I mean, that was
Hmm.
essentially with the firehouse light, the
Hmm.
the stage prop for early Kiss, and it's just focused in on there. And then you get that great intro. You hear them noodling and just
Hmm.
warming up, get moving, and then the a warm San Francisco welcome. I mean, it wasn't Sean Delaney screaming, "Put your two lips together and kiss."
Still
Um,
cool.
it's just it's such a cool intro, but the segue between Deuce and Strutter bothers me in that
Why that?
there's
Why
a
is that?
pause. It's a pause instead of a 1-2 punch of just instantaneous segue.
Well, they had to make sure their guitars were still in tune. They had to make sure, all these things, because, they're still this band still comes out swinging at this point. There's a lot of
Mhm.
energy that comes through on this. So maybe they were just checking, and I didn't watch it close enough to see. I think Peter takes off his, because he's wearing the leather one with the tassels on it. I think he takes that off in between Deuce and Strutter. I think he does. I know it's off by later on in the show. Paul's not wearing any jacket or anything like that, so it's possible that there was a pause because he had to, do a quick little costume change. But
Yeah. Strutter, I mean, more windmills. I'm just sitting there thinking, no wonder Paul Stanley thrashed his shoulder. He's doing
mhm,
windmills through nearly every song back in this early stage. But the other thing
mhm,
is the close up of him singing. You see the choker. I'm like, God, that can't be
mhm.
comfortable to wear. And
Hell
looking
no.
at Gene, look at that leathers he's wearing. It looks like rags.
It looks like rags because he probably tried to clean it and then couldn't, or someone tried to clean it. I bet you those costumes probably stood up on their own when they took them off. As disgusting
Yeah.
as that sounds, but that's probably why they switched to spandex. Very, very, later on, because leather is hard to clean, especially if you're wearing it every night. I would doubt they had multiples of the costumes at this point. They probably just one set, and that was it. That
No,
was it.
when they're in San Francisco, they're I think was it 74, 75 that they're begging for money, basically.
Hmm.
Staying down at the Vagabond Inn. Maybe in
Hmm.
74, but
Hmm.
still the same. They didn't have money at this time.
No, no, of course not. Next up is my favorite Kiss song, "Got to Choose," and it's so I hate that this song is absent from every other Pro Shot video. I wish this one carry. I wish we were able to see this in the glory of Kiss Alive. Um, but here it is here, and it is a fantastic version of this song, and it's always been one of my favorites. Always, always, always. And it's cool to hear a new song, third in. And it's great. You look at the set list. You had two new songs, back to back. Then you had Parasite and Let Me Go Rock and Roll. Um, Watching You was on the original demo, so I really don't consider that a new song. But imagine going to see Kiss and their third and fourth song are brand new tracks. How cool would that have been? So I love Got to Choose. This is probably my favorite performance on the whole show.
I'm with you. Got to chew. Not got to
Yeah, yeah.
choose.
He goes, "You
Got to
got to
chew.
choose," and then he runs away from the
Has
mic.
always been one of my favorite Kiss songs. And getting, when Paul did it live, I think 2014 or 2017, something like that, I was just smiling. I must have looked like a complete idiot.
We're all
But
idiots.
I love the song, but this performance is just absolutely outstanding. It sounds so much better than the album. The camera work, though, during that intro section and Gene looking wicked. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
spectacular. Again, they got the cues for the camera work really pretty well spot on during this show. So it's absolutely amazing that they kind of got lucky with where they were focusing and how they were, mixing the different cameras.
Maybe it's because they were there, just 6 months earlier in June of '74. Maybe it's the same in-house guys going, "Oh, we got that makeup band back. We know how we shot them last time. Let's do the same thing this time." That could be it. Like that could be
Yeah.
it.
Well, they nailed
So
it.
yeah, they definitely nailed it. And again, Hotter Than Hell, my absolute favorite Ace Frehley solo of all time. That and it's great to hear the song at a non breakneck speed because listen, I love the Destroyer tour, but they were playing Hotter Than Hell way too fast on the Destroyer tour. This song grooves like no other, and it's the title track off the new album. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Nearly as cool as Paul's intro. That is so camp, so San Francisco. Ooh, let's misbehave. Oh, darling, indeed. I mean, just how he intros that song is just so perfectly San Franciscan. Bit of a bummer that the lighting's off at the beginning. Peter in the
Uh,
background. And
yeah, I
Peter
mean,
is a show on his own during this song. And there's
Pete.
great camera sync where Paul leaps right before the solo and camera on leap, camera on solo. Absolutely great transition.
Hmm. Yeah, I think this is a really powerful song, and you could tell why it stuck around at least for a little bit. It stuck around a little longer than Got to Choose did. Um, and then we got Firehouse, which we get to see Gene in all of his glory do his trick.
It's not even that. I mean, during the song when he's doing his little mannequin dance, it's like
He was
it's
really
meant
really
to be
he
like
was really really lean at this point too, so he did look like a marionette at some point.
yeah, and you get more windmills, but his bass lines in this are just absolutely thunderous. But I love the fog going into the fire, just that fog enveloping, and then you get a
Mhm.
glitch in the middle of it, screwing everything up for that fire sequence. It just,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
no.
Is that so? We had Nothing to Lose. That was on Confidential. Watching You on Extreme Close Up. Deuce on here. And okay, all right. Because I've always tried to look for better versions of everything. And I kind of wondered if Firehouse may have been on one of these tapes on a different version, maybe without the glitch. But no such luck. No such luck. So someone's got it in their closet. Somebody that works for the Bill Graham archive, or what is it now? Is it was sold to
Wolfgang?
yeah, it was sold to Wolfgang Vault, and so maybe somebody has it. Maybe somebody will post it somewhere. Who knows? How it would be nice to see it in a pristine quality. Oh, I forgot to mention, because we were talking about some of the disappointing quality on Kiss My Ass. It does say right in the package, this program contains archive footage which may not be of the standards that reflects contemporary technology, and that was printed in 1994. So,
Yeah.
hmm. Anyway,
All right.
anyway,
Watching
next,
You.
watching you. It's clear to me that when Kiss came back in '96, they definitely watched this show, because this performance of Watching You probably made them go, "Hey, man, maybe we should do this song." I know Kiss had been doing Watching You dating back to '92, but something about this track and watching these four guys do this song, it probably made them think that it was a good idea that the reunion would include this song. But I thought this was an incredible performance, and one of my favorite tracks off Hotter Than Hell, for sure.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. This performance is badass and creepy, just utterly excellent. But I also think this is some of the best shots of Gene ever filmed
Hmm.
live in concert. Some of the just catching his facial expressions and
Hmm.
movements.
And
This
seeing the
is
makeup that's
definitive
that's that's
demon.
not around his eye anymore. Like, he's wearing no
Yep.
makeup around here, so it makes him look a little more demonic than maybe he did on the Dynasty tour, in my opinion.
This is a song to focus in on. It's a great song to begin with, but it's also perfectly filmed.
I agree. I agree. So, and again, you could see Watching You. There's a clip of this on Kiss Extreme close up. Then we go back to Nothing to Lose, which was released on Kiss Confidential. No, this is what I was talking about earlier, where you see Peter wrestling with the microphone, bringing it back and forth while he's singing, while he isn't singing, because you're getting those cool, call and answer sessions. And I kind of always love to hear the band counting off the song, like not on the microphone, like they're counting it off to themselves. They're not. He's not speaking directly to the microphone. You're hearing him, count up the song. I thought that was just really cool to hear, because when they're on a giant stage, in Largo 77, you're not hearing the band count anything, but here you can hear them, because you're right there. And what a cool performance of this song. I This was definitely a centerpiece for me here. Also centerpiece for me on MTV Unplugged, and it kind of made me wish that this was on the proper reunion tour. I know we got it on the Psycho Circus tour, the opening night, but I wish that we would have gotten the reunion band to see this.
Yep, Gene, just a smiling, happy demon singing about the horror. Uh, Great intro. Gene and Paul, I'm sorry, Gene and Peter really
Hmm.
drive the mood on this song. But just going back to the end of Watching You, the instrumental section at
Hmm.
the end of that is really cool with the negative effects
Hmm.
used in the overlays, kind of flashing. Very neat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And all they're doing is they're removing the black and then like changing the colors. Just
Mhm.
that's how they get those cool overlay effects. Something so simple and something just so cool. Um,
Yeah, so striking.
mhm. And then we get down to Parasite, which this is the first track I had ever seen of this performance, because it opened up the Kiss My Ass video. Um, and I always take it back to that time watching this on a VHS on a 13-inch TV in my bedroom in the '90s, going, "Wow, this is really old Kiss footage." And it's just, this, for some reason, this song always does it for me. And I love seeing the choreography during the solos that I wish they kind of would have brought back when they started doing the song, later on in the career. I mean, I thought that would have been cool when they were doing on the Rock the Nation tour to kind of bring that choreography back. But I always thought it was cool that they did that.
Yeah, great solo sequence with the choreography
Hmm.
and Ace
Ace,
doing the solo,
yeah.
and the sequence visually of how that's presented on the video. It's a shame there's a glitch there, but I love the camera work with Peter during the drum break part. But Gene's
Mhm.
just a
And he's just
demented
slapping that.
demon.
Yeah.
Gene, he's like just wickedly singing this song. It's awesome. Again, this has feeling and emotion and power, and it's a great song. I love Parasite to this day. It's still a top track as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I like Parasite a lot too, and I specifically like this version of the song just because it takes me back to my very very early days of being a Kiss fan, and my very early days of not having 100 Kiss DVDs or 200 shows to pick from. This was one of those things where like I just had this clip on the Kiss My Ass video. It always watching this song on this show always takes me back to those really 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 early days. And it when it was fun collecting was not that collecting isn't fun anymore, but it was fun because you were seeing this stuff for the very first time, and I remember that. I remember that quite a bit.
Yep,
All
I
right,
agree.
100,000 years, and this song does take 100,000 years because not only do you have the bass solo, which Gene is like barely spitting any blood. Then we have Peter's drum solo, and always what I take from this is that zoom in effect during Peter's drum solo because they're like it's like it's not a smooth zoom in. It's like they're trying to make it with the beat that he's playing at. Um, but I watch it and I'm thinking I'm like, man, those flames were probably really hot and really close.
Yeah. Um, they don't capture the flames very well here, unfortunately. But the ones that they do capture, and getting to
Hmm.
see kind of the people standing by the backstage area or to
Hmm.
the side of the stage is
Hmm.
very cool. The bass is great. I actually like Gene's, little blood set. It's very abbreviated and short and sweet.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know whether it's just because of the colors or lack thereof.
Hmm.
You just don't see it visually. So I like the condensed drum solo as well, and I actually like the camera work on it. It works for my brain.
Hmm. I don't dislike it. It's just kind of something that I always remember, like as you're going in and you're seeing that the zoom in thing, um and who would have thunk that it, 30 35 years later this Peter drum solo section was going to be the piece of Kiss music used the most on the official Kiss documentary Kisstory. They used this 100,000 years drum solo at least 3 times during that documentary, and well, I guess 'cause there was no Kiss music that they can use, but yeah, I always
But you,
I thought it was funny that this is something that was repeated quite a bit.
You make it seem like it goes on too long, but I love the preacher section here. This is definitive, and it's magnificent how Paul kind of uses that rapport and growing command of the audience in such a spectacular way. Um, there's an urgency to this whole thing. He's actually preaching and he means it at this stage. It's not by rote yet. He actually
Yeah,
believes
yeah.
in what he's shouting.
I guess by the time that I would have seen this, it would have already been on the reunion tour, and I also guess it would have kind of, I guess, um, reached its shelf life at that point in time. By the
Hmm.
time I had seen it, so it was still new here, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, something like this, I always kind of would want more songs instead of a part like this. I remember seeing this during the Coventry performance, and where you're seeing Gene actually, make people clap their hands and things like that. I thought that was kind of cool. But I almost would rather see more songs, and I would almost rather see more like I mean, how cool would it have been if they did, I don't know, Kissing Time, or how cool would it have been if it was the middle of 100,000 years, they go into Strange Ways or something like that. So,
Oh yeah.
um, I don't know. I mean, I this is one of those things that I guess maybe I would have appreciated it more had I had I was seeing it live. So watching it on video, it's one of those parts where I'm like, man, I was like, I really kind of want to get to Black Diamond at this point in time. Maybe I would have felt different if it wasn't the bass solo, the drum solo, and excuse me, and the preacher section. So that's why I'm like, man, it's like this song is going on forever. So That's just my opinion,
all
though.
those all those things I bitch and moan about over the past 2 decades with Kiss, this goes on too long, this blah blah blah. I find I have a completely different attitude with the archival stuff when all of those gimmicks and shtick was sincere.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it would have definitely been more sincere at this point in time too, because they were hungry. This was they probably hadn't eaten 3 meals this day. They still wanted that hit record, or they still wanted those sellout shows. They weren't playing arenas at this point, and clearly, although there may have been plans um, for the upcoming Cobo Hall performance, they hadn't played a legitimate arena at this time yet. So yeah,
They
I guess
needed
you're right.
they
I guess it was more sincere at this point in time.
they needed converts rather than the review in the local chronicle that called this the most crass, the most worthless rock band to run through town. That's what they were up against. Now they have fans saying that.
That is true. They do have fans saying, well, yeah. Can you believe that they have fans saying that? So, but anyway, on to Black Diamond, and we're hearing the first vocal performance of Peter Criss of the night. And I do think it was really funny that the drums levitated looked like they levitated 3 feet.
Two and a
So
half.
2.5 feet. But solid vocal performance by Peter. Solid performance by the whole band. Really, this was much more honest, as you mentioned, than it became to be. Because sometimes I think when we see Black Diamond, there's this whole long drawn out solo from Paul, and then they do the Black Diamond section, and then there's the bombs going off at the end. I think this was much more raw and much more in your face. Imagine how close the fans must have been to those bombs when they were going off.
Yeah. Imagine no one got hurt or killed. Well, occasional getting hit by flash paper.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, seriously. But I mean, you wonder if, because I mean, there were probably no codes or anything back then. So these bombs are going off literally like 5 feet in front of your face. So I don't know. I think that would kind of be cool to see that
It's a
at
great
that
song.
level.
The urgency of Peter singing. He's singing for his life. The band's in
Hmm.
a musical street fight. It's like the West Side Story in Brooklyn or the Bronx. It's just again, it's powerful.
Hmm. It really, really is. The band hasn't lost the power at all during this performance, my opinion. And again, this was a new band. They weren't on the fast track to success. So they're going to end this song and come back for an encore. Unheard of, unheard of at that point. So, and what was that first encore?
Cold gin.
You know what? I don't. I have a love hate relationship with this song. I loved it in 1980 because it went right into Strutter. Um, I know this song carries on probably longer than it should. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess this kind of seems like it may have worked really well in a B monster movie in 1975, especially because it's black and white. And that's what I think of. And it's funny. I guess the band wanted you to think about it then too, because on the end of the road tour, all the graphics on the screen during Cold Gin were also in black and white. Some of them were from this show. Some of them were from Australia, 1980. But I guess maybe the band kind of wanted to hark you back to this because all the graphics during Cold Gin were in black and white.
Yeah. Just remember, as Gene says, it must be old. It's in black and white. Um,
That is true.
I don't like Cold Gin as an encore, but it's a good party song. Again, there's some very cool overlays. There's the same effects again, but when they use them, they don't overuse them. They don't
Mhm.
overdo them. But what struck me watching this was Kiss really was musical theater.
Yeah, yeah, I
You
agree.
just, you know, uh, again, becoming a fan in the 80s, you sometimes forget that. They were a theatrical band, but they had the music to back themselves up. The
Mhm.
music is there. The performance and the quality of the performance and playing is perfect for the music that they're playing. They weren't a hype.
Yeah,
Hype
no,
certainly helped.
I agree. I mean, they definitely had musical muscle at this point in time, and The band performing here is a different band that we saw in the clips from the Coventry in 1973. The band was becoming a well-oiled machine here. They weren't big, loud, and chrome yet, which is what they ended up being on the Love Gun tour. It wasn't there yet, but it was certainly getting there. Um, and then we finish up the set with "Let Me Go Rock and Roll," sadly incomplete.
Yep. There's really not enough of this one. It's
Do you
just an
think that they did the
injustice.
whole? Do you think they did the whole like jam and everything like they did the year later in this version? We just don't have it
I have no idea whether they would have.
because it seems like just based on. So let's look at other shows from 1975 that were archived. So we have obviously we have those Larrabee Studios. Let's see, what do we have? Do we have anything else from around that time?
You have to go back to 74,
I think
and
about
I think the
74, yeah.
yeah, no, we're so lacking on
Early 75
recordings
because the
from the
next thing
Hotter
we
Than Hell
have
tour.
yeah, the next thing we have
Is
is
Northampton.
Northampton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. We are lacking on Hotter Than Hell documents. Because then you go back to 74, you go back to late 74, and you're certainly lacking there. But earlier on in the Hotter Than Hell tour, we have Hammond, Indiana, East Lansing, Michigan, and then that's kind of really it.
No, Victory Theater. Oh wait, no, that's 70. That's 75.
Mm.
Wait, no, that isn't, because that's the first performance of Parasite. No, that is 74.
Ooh, Victor Theater, where is that located?
Canada.
Canada,
Toronto. That's one that
Toronto.
surfaced in recent years, and that's in between. Um, that's in between the album coming out. So yeah, Let Me Go Rock and Roll closes that one. I'll have to go reference that.
I'm trying to find that performance because you said Canada in 74.
September 14th, 1974.
So that predates
If
the that so that would technically be Kiss Tour.
technically.
Yeah, because you want to get technical, that's technically the Kiss Tour because Hotter Than Hell didn't come out till October, and we I guess would kick off the Hotter Than Hell tour October 14th of 1974. Just because there was that break because they played early October, then they had those 10 days off between Houston, Texas, and then the Thunder Chicken in Cornstalk, Michigan. Thunder Chicken. Nice. So, any final thoughts on this great show?
Yeah, Let Me Go Rock and Roll. I mean, just this whole set. Just I was sitting there as I came to the end of watching the show, and I'm like, just imagine the final show in December 2023.
Mm-hmm.
If for that very final show, the lights had come on and the original four had come out just wearing leather and blasted through in a live set with these sorts of songs for 75-minute set, 60
Mm-hmm.
minutes, 75-minute set, and that would
Mm-hmm.
be it. you
Mm-hmm.
know just how powerful this still speaks. Again, I watched this right before we started recording, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like,
I
I
watched it
put on
today
my
too.
Kiss shirt. I put on my
Yeah.
Kiss podcasting shirt,
Is that the new
because
Dynasty
it
shirt?
really, it is. It's actually, I actually think I had to get it. Fair baseball. It's just I don't buy much merch, but I saw this. I'm like, this is just so American. I don't have anything like that. So,
I
um,
should have got that because the stupid fucking bag on that is so cool on that Dynasty reissue.
yeah. So again, this show just reminds me of why I love Kiss and why
Same.
I still love researching the touring history from this period to try and see what, if I can find a review mentioning a couple of songs for a show we didn't know that were performed, or just details or anything about it. It just keeps alive, um, for me. So it gets me excited. But this one, again, because it is tied to the beginnings of my fandom, with exposed to seeing it, to living here, to hearing some of the background stories about the Winterland and just
Mm-hmm.
the mystery to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent. again, I hope anyone, presses stop after we've finished this episode and we've inspired them to go watch it, and hopefully they'll enjoy it as much as I did. What about you?
Yeah, that's the point of this. We want to inspire you to watch. Please finish watching the episode before you do that, though, and then go and watch the shows that we're talking about. But yeah, for me, it cemented that this band has such a rich history, and it cemented that this was one of the most important shows. And again, it starts off one of my earliest memories of Kiss fandom in Kiss My Ass.
Yep.
So again, this is probably our shortest episode, just under an hour here. But again, it was a short show, and the band was just starting out. The history was just beginning. There wasn't 19 different things to pull from at this time. So I guess this was a short trip into the Inner Sanctum. So until we see you next time, thanks for joining us in the Inner Sanctum, and we'll see you on the next one.